Hello, fellow troubadours. Lori Dubois here with another edition of the Inside Scoop, where I interview subject matter experts on things that I know will be helpful to you as entrepreneurs running and marketing your businesses. So today I feel very honored to have Katie Brinkley with us from Next Step Social Communications. And we're going to do a little talking about social media, and specifically, we had a conversation not too long ago. We got talking about introverted and extroverted in social media, and it just went in an interesting direction. So I want to dive into some of those things. But first of all, welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. I'm really looking forward to a continuation of our previous discussion, because like you said, it was good, and it went in a direction I didn't foresee it even going.
Right. And sometimes those are the best, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So before we get started in the meat of things, please do a quick introduction of yourself and your business. And then at the end of the conversation, we'll also talk about ways to follow you and where to find you.
Great. Yeah. Well, my name is Katie Brinkley, and I have my own social media agency, and I've been helping small business owners, entrepreneurs, and brands with their social media strategy for 18 years. I started back in the days of MySpace, helping bands with their MySpace pages, getting off of MySpace and onto the radio, and went through the corporate world for a while. And about 5.5 years ago, I started my own agency, where all I do now is the social media. So I always enjoy staying up on the latest trends, and it sure seems like, good old Mark Zuckerberg is keeping me very busy on always trying to stay up.
Exactly. I mean, things are changing at lightning speed, and I think keeping up is probably, I don't know, maybe that's 90% of the battle, right?
It really is.
Yeah. Because we know showing up is important. So thanks for being here. And so if you could start by, and this is somewhat of a loaded question, right? But just in a nutshell, I think most entrepreneurs already know and believe they should be using social media in some form. But if you could give us somewhat of a condensed version of why they should be using social media, I think that'd be a great place to start.
Yeah. And I think that, with social media, when it first came out, like when I was helping bands, like it was just a fun way to keep up with people. But now it has its own purpose in our businesses. And I mean, that, like I said before, I've been doing this for 18 years, but it was never for like my full-time job, because nobody really knew how to use it for their business. But if you're not using social media in some regard for your business now, you're going to be left behind, and you're missing out on opportunities. So just first of all, Google indexes Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram more than any other website. So that's one of the biggest reasons right there. If you want your name to appear, Google is checking out Facebook and Instagram. Additionally, social proof. It is a very real thing. If somebody wants to do business with you and then they go to your Instagram page, or let's say they Google you, and they click on your Facebook page and nothing's happened for maybe 3-4 years, that's going to be kind of a red flag for potential customers. Like, oh, well, it doesn't really look like they're doing much anymore. There's not really any testimonials. I'm not really sure if this is the business for me. So having that social proof is extremely important. And notice I didn't say having, 8 million followers. Just having a consistent presence on your social media is that social proof that so many, potential buyers and customers need.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that definition, actually, of social proof. And maybe you could say a little bit more about that, because I've heard of that, and I think some people have heard about it, but they don't really understand. And I think sometimes they confuse social. You mentioned confusing followers with what social proof really is for. But I think also is just showing up all on its own, does that constitute social proof?
Yes and no. So that's a little bit of a loaded question there. I mean, I think that with social proof, again, it's consistently adding value about what you do, who you serve, why helping answer questions that your potential clients could have, just giving value and building that community. I think that especially with the emergence of TikTok and going viral, it is not a business strategy going viral, and amassing a ton of followers. For the most of us, the majority of us, social media is an in addition to. I mean, not, I think I am definitely in the minority where it's my full-time job. And even I don't just do my social media as just my full-time job. I'm doing other clients. And I think that having that social proof, having just that presence so that people can go to your page and think of it almost as like a mini website. So how you have all those different browser windows on your website, you have the about, you have your services, you have, testimonials. All of that are different ways that you can show up on social media and not just be selling to people, but give people the answers to the questions that they might not necessarily even know that they have.
Good point. Very good point. So social media, by its very name, right? Social media is social, or is meant to be social. And I think how we use it is different, but because it's meant to be a social platform and a social interaction, do you think it's actually geared towards certain personality types? And I'm talking maybe like introverts versus extroverts.
Yeah. And I guess this kind of comes back with what I was saying about TikTok. I think that a lot of people think that, oh, well, now I got to be dancing on social media if I
Right.
want to like get any new business. And that's not true at all. But I mean, here's someone right here telling you, I don't like video. It is hard for me to show up on camera. It is extremely hard. There's a reason that I went in. So I also worked in radio, but I mean, there's a reason I went into radio and not television. It's because I get a little camera shy. And so I think that a lot of people think, oh, I got to be an extrovert and willing to dance and have fun and be silly. And like I'm a comedian too, if I want to get, new people into to buy from me. And that's not true at all. But I will say you do have to be willing to show your face. Stock imagery, pretty quotes and graphics, they're only going to get you so far. And so even if you're an introvert, you don't need to be showing up and dancing, but you do need to give your business, you do need to give your potential clients and customers a face to do business with.
Great point. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, I don't have to dance, right? because you're right. We watch some of the TikToks and we see some of the numbers and we get convinced that we have to show up in a certain way. And if it feels not authentic, if it feels inauthentic, that makes us even more uncomfortable, where maybe we started at already a little bit of a discomfort level. So could you give us some ideas that we can still show up, still show our face? We can still be our introverted selves, but we can still show up for people. How do you balance that?
One of the best ways to get comfortable on video is in Facebook, Instagram, the stories. So those are just the 15-second clips that you can record. And the best part about it is that they're gone in 24 hours. So I am notorious for having my AirPods in to talk to my audience. And one of those AirPods will always come out. And I was so embarrassed when it would happen. And then I was like, okay, this not that big of a deal. Like AirPods pop out. It's obvious that this is kind of just off the cuff, me popping in to show my face, say, a tip or, something that I've learned, show up for my audience. And the thing about stories, again, they're short, they're gone in 24 hours, and they're only meant for your followers to see. So only people that are following you on Instagram are going to be seeing your stories anyways. So that means that they already know, like, and trust you. And if they see a story where your AirPod falls out and they're like, well, look at that loser, I'm not following her anymore. Well, you know what? That's fine. They're not my people. And it really kind of helps you nourish and nurture the people that have decided that they want to be in your circle, in your sphere.
Well, and don't you also think that when those kind of things happen, when we watch those things happen to other people, I don't think usually we think, oh my God, they must be so embarrassed. Oh my God, that's so horrible. I think they think, she's real just like me.
Exactly, Lori. And I think that, with it's hard with so many, polished pictures, like I said before, and the beautiful graphics and the highly curated videos, that really we're all, on this journey of life together. We all make mistakes. And when you have those opportunities of you stumbling over your words, of an AirPod falling out, or the wind's blowing across your face, while you're trying to do a story, it makes you relatable, and people will
Yes.
say, that's my person, oh, look, she's just like me, or I've seen this happen before. And it allows you to identify with someone without ever actually even meeting them in real life.
Exactly. Exactly. I think there's so much power in me finding myself in your story, right? It's just, and so that brings me to, do you think it's a good idea for people to be sharing the quote behind the scenes kinds of content? Because like you mentioned, there's so much highly polished content on there, and then it just becomes this exercise in how perfect can I appear? I don't even know if I'm acting like my real life. And then you see people who take their real life and it feels like they almost take it to an extreme, but they're showing some of the behind the scenes. Is that a comfort level, an individual comfort level, or what would be your advice on that?
Well, so this is the thing with social media, especially when you're using it for your business. It's finding that balance. And again, stories, I think, are a great spot for you to showcase more of your personal life, more of the behind the scenes. So like if you're going to a conference, showing up in your stories, saying, what session you just went to, who you just met, sharing pictures from the event, all of that makes sense because that is what's happening right here, right now, that relates to your life. But it's not necessarily so far off base of, me just showing up like with a whole bunch of pictures of my dog and walking my dog every day, because that's not really in alignment with what people are in there for. So are following me for. So it's okay to show, so I share pictures of my family skiing every now and then, or us, I do share a picture or two of my dog. But I try, it's not all that I share. I'm still showing up and giving those quick tips, trying to showcase the behind the scenes. And that's all in my stories. My feed, and I'm just going to stick with Instagram here because otherwise, if I try and bring in LinkedIn and Facebook and everything, it gets overwhelming. But my feed is basically, like I was saying before, that mini website showcasing different tips, different, of like what I do, different ways to work with me, videos on how to do something. All that shows up in my feed because that's like my little mini website. And if someone new comes into my feed, they see a post, they're like, oh, who's Katie Brinkley? They come over and then they see all the other posts and value that I give. That's what I want them to decide. Okay, she's for me. I'm going to follow her. Then in my stories, they can get to know a little bit more about me, know that I'm a mom, know that I have a dog, know that I love to be active, know that I'm going out and continuing to learn and stay up to date on the latest trends. And that's what I show in my stories.
Okay. So you're looking at more almost like as you're building a relationship, it sounds like, right?
Exactly.
There's the facts and the figures and the data that we know about somebody, what's their name, where do they work, what's their job title, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And then you can get to know them a little bit deeper. So I think what I hear you saying is you can use your feed differently than your stories, differently than your reels, and actually zone in on optimizing those in different ways.
Exactly. And Lori, what you just said there, people probably like, wait a sec, this sounds overwhelming. And
Uh-huh.
this is why I think, you don't need to be on every single social media platform known to mankind. TikTok isn't for everyone. I'm not on TikTok, so I mean, like Facebook, it might not be your jam, maybe LinkedIn's your space, but it's finding what type of platform you resonate with the most and how you can maximize all the different ways you can show up on those platforms. Like you were saying, like on Instagram, stories, reels, the feed, going live, all of those require a part of your overall strategy. And you can't just do one and hope that you're going to have success. There's different aspects of all of this that go into making a successful social media presence.
I think that for people listening, I think that right there is one of the most important things to have as a takeaway, is that whatever platform you decide to use, that you really need to figure out the best ways to maximize it, right? So that you're leveraging it and that you're doing things smart, because you're right, it can take a lot of time.
Yeah, it can become a full-time job. But I mean, like, that's where you have to have a strategy. And once you have the strategy, then it all makes everything else easier. But again, there's been so many people that have come to me and they're like, okay, so I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, I'm like, Pinterest. I mean, like, the list goes on. And again, you have to just take that step back and be like, where am I seeing the most results? Is it even worthwhile for me to be on Pinterest when I don't have any followers? Nobody sees my pins, but I have the name. I mean, that you're wasting your time and efforts. And unless you have an in-house social media person, then I say take a step back on and focus in on just one or two.
Right, right. Okay. So I think that I'm hearing what you say too, as far as if you're introverted, don't let that stop you from showing up on social, right? There's
Yeah.
still ways that you can do that. If you're showing up on stories, and you did mention, they're only around for 24 hours. So it feels like you don't have as much skin in the game when you're trying to do that. Are there other ways that you can think of getting yourself around the discomfort of showing up?
Like I said, stories are the best spot, but really a lot of the magic happens in being social. So commenting on other people's posts, showing up in their feed, just saying, hey, this was a great tip. I loved how you shared XYZ. Being social is a way for you to get that visibility in front of somebody new. And it could be a potential client. It could be a potential business bestie, someone that's in your sphere that can help support you on your business journey. And it could be someone that, that wants to do business, that maybe they're a good lead. So I think showing up in people's comments is a great way, without having to show your face, for you to just get the conversation started. And it's one of the biggest things that many businesses are forgetting about. They're like, oh, well, I post, every day. And okay, well, have you checked to see if anyone left you a comment, or have you been commenting on other people's posts? And that's, again, just part of the whole online strategy, social media strategy, is you do need to be social. There's been plenty of times where I have not posted for a week and I've still gained followers because I'm still being social on the platform, engaging with other people's posts. So it's a huge part of the strategy that you can't really ignore.
I think, okay, so maybe that gets to be moved up to the most important takeaway, because I think that is huge, and that whole idea of engagement. And sometimes we think as entrepreneurs, we're just trying to get people to engage with us. Like, we put something out there, we're waiting for them to bite, and we forget about that part of us going out there. And I hadn't thought of this really till now, but I think for people, if they're struggling with appearing before an audience, or what they perceive to be a big audience, you don't know if 2 people are going to see this or if 2,000 people are going to see this, right? So there could be a little bit of hesitancy, thinking, oh, 2,000 people might see this, I have to say a certain thing or act a certain way. But when you're commenting and when you're being social in the ways you're describing, is going into other people's accounts and giving them comments, or giving a DM to them, or that kind of thing, to me, that feels more like back to the one-on-one communication. So that feels like it shouldn't be as scary as standing on a stage, because I think sometimes in social media, we feel like it's equal to standing on a big stage and talking to all these people, and that can be frightening. But in reality, when you're making a comment on one person's thing, even though someone else could see it, it feels more like an organic, like one-on-one kind of a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that with social media, like you were saying, like, oh, everyone's looking at me. And but when you have those one-on-one conversations, you never know the relationship that could have from it. They might never respond back to your comment, just being real. They might not do it, but they could. And if you guys start a common, comment thread together. So good example. somebody that I follow on social media. She actually was following me. She said, "Hey, I saw your live. Just wanted to just introduce myself. My name's Carol." And I checked out her stuff. She checked out mine. We started commenting on each other's things all the time. She and I talk on the phone all the time now. She's been on my podcast and she's become a really close friend. And it was just because she sent a comment to me saying, "Hey, I appreciated what this stuff that you shared." And I commented back on her stuff. So you never know where the relationship could go.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think if we're pre-assuming or presuming where it's going to go or where it's not going to go, that's sometimes where we get in trouble, right? Because I think that's a big piece of marketing too. You're doing your best to make educated guesses about where certain kinds of people are, and then trying to engage them in certain ways. And some of it is an experiment at best, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's called social media for a reason. The whole purpose behind these platforms at the beginning was not to mine your data, but it was to be able to talk with other people that had like-minded interests, stay up to date with friends and family. And with what we saw in 2020 in the pandemic, you can still have authentic relationships with people that you meet online. Now, I'm not saying to go and run out and start, meeting everyone you meet online in real life. I mean, definitely do your vetting, but at the same time, there's authentic relationships to be had. You just need to know how to approach it the right way. Showing up with just a random DM saying hi is not going to get anyone to want to engage with you. You have to approach somebody and the same way that you would a real networking event. You wouldn't just show up to somebody and throw your business card at them and see like, okay, Katie, social media strategy. Oh, she's gone. Well, that was interesting, I guess. You have to show up and actually get to know somebody, and you can really have a wonderful relationship with people that you meet online, whether you're an extrovert, whether you're an introvert. You just have to be willing to have a conversation.
I think that goes back to, well, the name of it being social media, being social on social media, and looking at being social in a different lens than some people think about. Because I think it's gotten to this point where we forget the social part, and we even forget, because I remember, years ago when people were, likening social media to a cocktail party, or trying to like describe things so that people could understand what it was and what it was for. And I think we've come so far that we forget what some of the basic reasons are that still hold true. So I think those have all been great tips. And so no matter who you are, you can certainly leverage your time and your effort as long as you have a strategy, which is going to make you more effective. So those tips have been awesome. And thank you so much. We could talk about this for hours, but I think hopefully this is encouraging to people to do your homework, just show up, be your authentic self, and really engage with other people, because I do think that's what it's about. And it doesn't really matter. It's not like it's something that's preloaded where if you're a performer or if you're an extrovert, you're just going to maximize social media more than somebody else, because I don't think that that's the case. So I think that is awesome. I have 5 questions that are like a little lightning round questions that are more personal that I wanted to ask you, just so that we could get to know you a little bit better before we close up. And so the first one is, what are you reading right now or listening to?
Oh, okay. So I listen to a daily podcast, and it is called NFT 365. And I'm learning about the metaverse and Web3. The whole reason why is because when Mark Zuckerberg changed the name of Facebook to Meta, I feel like, especially people in my industry, we have to pay attention. So I listen to a daily podcast, NFT 365. It's hosted by someone named Brian Fanzo, and it is a phenomenal podcast all about NFTs, Web3, metaverse, blockchain, all that, for people who are interested in learning about it and just trying to, stay somewhat in the know, because who knows when that sort of technology and that sort of the web will be our everyday. So that is what I'm listening to right now.
Interesting. And is it kind of for the lay person?
He has, like I said, he does it every day. So he's got to think of fresh content. But
Right.
it starts with everything from like, what is an NFT? What is the blockchain, to, investing and flipping NFTs and all sorts of like higher strategy stuff. So it's a
Wow.
great podcast for anyone that's just interested in trying to dabble in a little bit of this whole next phase of the interwebs.
Mm. That is very interesting.
I probably threw you for a
Okay.
loop with that one, didn't I?
I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Okay, next question. What's your favorite spectator sport?
I am a huge Colorado Avalanche fan. So I love hockey. I'm a former sports radio reporter. So Colorado Avalanche, Denver Broncos, those are my two favorite sports, but absolutely love hockey. And the fact that the Avs are doing amazing this year definitely helps me
Yes.
never miss a game.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Okay. So the next one is, what's the favorite sport that you do?
Up until the pandemic, I played indoor soccer twice a week and I
Ah,
loved it. It was so much fun. But since then, I do not have a team anymore. So if anyone in Denver is looking for a girl to come play on their indoor soccer team, let me know. But yeah, that's my favorite sport to play. But right now, mostly because of that's being gone, I do a lot of biking and hiking.
cool. And I know you're a skier as well. I've seen
I
pictures
guess I
of you
should have
and your
said,
and your
I should have
kids.
said, yeah, I know I should have said skiing. So I've hung up the skis for the rest of the season. So
Yeah, I
I'm
was
like,
going to
oh
say
yeah,
they're
out of
sort
sight,
of
out of mind. Run.
irrelevant in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So next one is, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
Oh man, that's a great question because I didn't ever expect to be doing this. Like I said before, being a social media anything wasn't a job back when I was in school. And I would love to still be working in radio or working in sports some way. So I think if I weren't doing this, I probably would definitely try and figure out a way to get back into the broadcast world or into the sports world in some way.
Okay, great. And lastly, Katie, what's your superpower?
My superpower, man, I I don't know, Lori. I mean, like, I feel like you're the master connector. I feel like every time I talk with you, there you've got somebody else that I should know or different opportunities. And I don't know what my superpower would be. Maybe, just being a mompreneur, because that is pretty tough. I have two daughters. They're both very active. They do swimming and gymnastics and trying to grow a business and trying to be a good mom and still trying to exercise and stay healthy. I don't know. Maybe that's my superpowers. I'm just still treading above water.
Yeah. Well, and you're doing it all. I think that's a super, we always think it has to be like one specific thing, right? But I mean, being an entrepreneur is tough enough, being an entrepreneur and being a mom and doing all the things, because I know that's literally all the things. So
It is.
you're right. Treading water, just getting from day to day, I think takes superpowers, right?
It does. It does.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. And before we close, I just want you to give us, which I can also post with the video, but give us some places where we can follow you or how we can reach you.
Well, I'm on social media.
You.
So yeah,
Good to
feel
hear
free.
that.
I know, yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, active on Instagram. On Instagram, it's I am Katie Brinkley. And then I do have a free guide on six ways to sell in the DMs without being salesy and sleazy. And that's at katiebrinkley.com.
Okay. KatieBrinkley.com. I am Katie Brinkley on Instagram.
On the gram, yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure we could have more conversations, and I think that we should do that in the future, but this has been very helpful. So
Awesome. Thanks again for
Katie.
having me, Lori. I can't wait to have you on my podcast
I'm
someday.
looking forward to
So
that. We'll
yes.
do it. Okay. Thanks.